Soy sauce, that dark, salty, umami-packed wizard of the condiment world. You've probably drizzled it, dipped in it, and splashed it with reckless abandon, never stopping to ask the big question, what is this stuff? I can assure you, it is not just salty water that got a really good tan. Behind that humble bottle lies a centuries-old saga of craftsmanship, patience, and what can only be described as a microbial rave. So let's break it all down, right here, on History of the Dish. From humble street food to royal feasts, the journey of your favorite meals is more incredible than you know. This is the History of the Dish. Let's start at the very beginning, a very good place to start. Soy sauce has its roots in ancient China, over 2,000 years ago. It evolved from a fermented paste called zhang, which was basically the ancient world's version of, I need to preserve this meat before it preserves me. As it traveled across Asia, this paste got a glow up and slowly morphed into the liquid superstar we know today. Now, the traditional way to make soy sauce involves a few simple ingredients: soybeans, wheat, salt, water, and a special guest star called Koji. The soybeans are steamed until they're soft and agreeable. The wheat is roasted and crushed, not because it misbehaved, but to give the sauce its signature aroma and a hint of sweetness. Then we invite the life of the party, Koji. Now, Koji is a mold, officially known as Aspergillus oryzae. Before you get squeamish, remember, this is the good kind of mold. It's the same fungi used to make sake and miso. It's basically the culinary world's most reliable roommate. Once Koji moves into the soy and wheat mix, it gets to work on what scientists call enzymatic breakdown and what we call pre-digesting your dinner. This mold expertly breaks down proteins into amino acids, including glutamic acid, the rock star behind that addictive umami flavor. It's basically doing all the hard work for your taste buds. After a few days of this moldy magic, the mixture is combined with brine to create a thick, chunky mash called muromi. This is where the real transformation begins, and it is not a fast process. We're talking 6 months to over a year. This isn't a microwave meal. This is a slow-cooked microbial symphony. During this marathon fermentation, a whole cast of characters, yeast and lactic acid bacteria, join the Koji mold for an epic months-long party in the vat. The yeast contributes alcohol and complex aromas, while the bacteria lower the pH, making the sauce stable and flavorful. This long, patient process is what gives real soy sauce its rich color, smooth mouthfeel, and that tang you just can't get from a chemistry set. Finally, after its long spa vacation, the muromi mash is ready for pressing. It's squeezed through cloth-lined presses to separate the liquid gold from the solid leftovers. Think of it like juicing a very, very patient, fermented brick. The first pressing is the premium stuff, while the leftovers might get repressed for a lower-grade sauce. But wait, there's more. The extracted liquid is then left to settle. It's often pasteurized, not just for safety, but to stop the fermentation and lock in the flavor. This heating process also deepens the color through the Maillard reaction, the same beautiful browning that gives us the crust on bread and the sear on a steak. Now, not all soy sauces are created equal. There's a whole family tree. You've got light soy sauce, salty and thin, dark soy sauce, thicker and sweeter, and tamari, often gluten-free and a byproduct of miso. The differences come from the ratio of soy to wheat, the fermentation time, and any extra flavors added. Then, there's the great divide, naturally brewed versus the chemical imposter. Commercially, some companies use acid to break down soy proteins in a matter of days. Think of it as the fast food of soy sauces. It's cheaper and faster, but it lacks the depth and nuance of the traditional stuff, often requiring a little help from caramel color and artificial flavors to even try to fit in. So, the next time you glug that beautiful brown liquid onto your fried rice or into your dipping dish, take a second to appreciate the journey. It's the product of steamed beans, roasted wheat, a friendly mold, and a cast of thousands of invisible microbes, all working in harmony for months on end. It may look simple, but its journey from bean to bottle is an extraordinary tale of patience, tradition, and a little bit of microbial magic. Thanks for watching. If you have a suggestion for our next History of the Dish, shout it out in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay curious.